Yo, 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 this is CJ Hoops. Josh, it's been a couple weeks since Wembanyama failed to overcome the Karl Anthony Towns Knicks. That feels like ancient history already. I've already gotten into a whole nother sport since. And then all this stuff just happened. I'm excited to talk it over with you.
Yeah, most podcasts really ramp up their content during the finals and the draft, but we're not like most podcasts. We're gonna
Yeah,
zag. So we're gonna come at you fresh off a Miles Bridges trade because that's really where CJ Hoops wants to make their money. So between a Algeria Jordan breakdown and the Miles Bridges trade, we're gonna have you covered here with all CJ Hoops content.
I'm glad I got to get my steam out about the finals and just do a 40-minute solo pod and just ramble. Because, I mean, that
You
was
did great.
exceptional.
You
It,
did you did great. There was a lot to take away there, and a lot I'm sure we'll discuss not only on this pod but in pods throughout the offseason to understand sort of what happened during those 5 games in the finals.
I was saying it's like, it's hard to wrap your head around a New York Knicks and as the NBA Finals champion. Because it's just all so new. It all happened so fast. And the story of them coming up short and being a laughingstock is as old as us plus two generations. So, we're wrapping our head around that trauma. Celtics trauma is also, I think it's a lot of talk, but let's get into a few of the teams um, that were most impacted since the NBA Finals by all these moves. We're kind of just going to go in order. Some big trades, some draft picks. Um, I do want to start with just teams that haven't done anything that we thought, you know, hello, are you guys awake? Which is usually Pat Riley. But this year, Houston, just asleep at the wheel. Nothing's happened there. This is a team that, yeah, go ahead on
Well,
Houston.
we need to start with your team before anything because
That's a whole can of fish,
uh,
yeah.
whether it's because the Celtics wanted to do something and weren't able to, and we'll get to the Giannis trade in a minute. The Rockets, they're going to go down saying that the Fred VanVleet injury was the number one reason their season went off the rails, and the Steven Adams injury, and all these
Yeah.
guys are young and they want to re-sign them all, and they don't want to overcommit. So, as interesting as it is that I think you see someone like Jaylen Brown on the market, or you see other teams, and there's a lot of reporting going on around Kawhi right now. There's De'Aaron Fox, who's clearly more than available. There's a lot of these all-star players. I think the Rockets are probably in some ways justifiably correct in saying we're not a superstar away from winning the championship. So we're sort of just going to wait. We haven't even really done anything in the playoffs yet. We have to bring it to your team because your team has done a lot in the
Yeah.
playoffs. Your team won the championship in 2024. Your team, all things considered, overperformed last season. And here we are with Jaylen Brown's burgeoning Twitch career potentially being the end of the Celtics. So, Rockets aside, jump in there if you have anything. But I think the real story that we need to start with is the state of the Boston Celtics.
Yeah. I'd like to go with the angle that we drove up the cost for the honest trade, and we were never serious about it at all.
Mm-hmm.
And Jalen knows that. Wink, wink. We're just gonna float you around. Um, but it doesn't feel great for him and the team to have everything in flux. Um, he's been floated
Getting into
for
Twitter wars,
forever. He's been floated for Kevin Durant forever.
yeah,
Um,
getting into Twitter wars with Bobby Marks is a really great way of showing that you're not at all being affected by all of the discourse in the national media.
yeah, yeah. He's on. He is. He's taking the banner from KD for most chronically online. But yeah, I mean, hopefully it all just dies down and winning smooths over everything. And if the Celtics just come out and Tatum is Tatum and um, they kind of get back to their mojo, then this is just going to be just Twitter stuff. Whereas I think
we had
Houston, what?
I was going to say we had talked a little bit about it, and the Houston element. We had this conversation. I remember when we had Austin Null on. right around, maybe it was trade deadline or it was right before the playoffs, and we had talked about the idea of Giannis and
Yeah.
where could he go. And we had mentioned San Antonio, and you and Austin were, hey, look, you can't put him on San Antonio because that's just too much of a sea
Yeah.
change.
They're doing their thing.
Houston, it feels like, whether it's correct or incorrect, they're just sort of off to the side at this point. And I think they're at a point in their team where they may honestly use all those draft picks. Remember, they have the Nets and the Suns draft picks coming next season. The Nets are probably going to be bad. I will
Yeah.
always buy stock in the Suns being bad. Where I'm curious to bring it back to Boston and then use that as a segue to get into the Giannis conversation is we never really talked about your opinion on Giannis. And because I don't think we ever saw the Celtics as a legitimate threat to go get him, because it would have seemed
Yeah.
so crazy in the middle of the season to say Tatum's going to come back and they're going to trade the other guy. So where were you in the lead up to the Giannis decision with Miami or Boston? Where were you at? Did you talk yourself into Tatum and Giannis? Where were you sort of as a fan and on the basketball court with the team? Where did you sort of want that all where to all that to end up?
When it comes to trading for all-timer guys, it's the commitment, right? Because everything that you're giving up, um, it's going to be big. So it's either you're giving up your future or you're giving up a lot of your present just to close the deal with those players you send out. And that stuff often does not work out. It's really risky. The only way it works out is you go win a title. Every other case, it's like Carmelo. You send him to Denver and you're kind of gutting the team because you traded the farm just to get him. So that combined with where the Celtics are, I think it would be an overreaction to trade Jalen. And the talk, I think, is just talk, the Twitter stuff. Um, but like you just had this incredible season and won the title 2 years ago. Tatum is going through stuff that no one's ever gone through. It it would be a huge gamble to trade Jalen for Giannis and say that's huge trust in post Achilles Tatum, and pretty big trust in usually injured Giannis over the last few playoff runs. So I think the safe thing to do is just stand pat. Um, that's where I'm at. I'm happy we're the same team.
And the last thing on the Celtics before we get into the trades that actually did happen and the draft picks that have been used, what do you want to see happen with Jalen now? And I guess it's a two-part question. What do you want to see happen with Jalen now? And knowing the state of the relationship, at least as it appears online, what do you think will happen with Jalen Brown going forward?
Yeah. Is it a two-story book to just say I want it to go back to the way that it was?
That's why I made it a two-part question, because that certainly may be what you do want, but do you think that's what's going to happen?
Maybe cat's out of the bag on Jalen being like a number two guy. Um, but I don't know, man. I think they can really work it out over a season. They do need to get bigger. I think more of the issue lies in the center rotation. After Nimi, I'm still not a Luca Garza guy, and you really just can't talk me into it, no matter what the metrics and whatever. Just too goofy. And so I think there's other stuff. I honestly think Jalen and Jason is a pairing that they still want to move forward with, and I bet those guys do too.
I would love the storybook ending element of it. I don't see it happening. And I think the Celtics need to start really, and it seems like they already are, canvassing the league to try and figure out what the best offers are. Now, for all of the reporting around him going to Portland and Portland offering Jeremy Grant and a couple of the worst picks they have, no, you're not gonna
No.
get Jalen Brown for that. But if the Celtics can get a real offer that gives them a replacement level wing with, to your point, some front court depth, I think they need to have that conversation. And for Jalen,
Yeah,
I
the
would,
money is real. The money is
and
big.
the money is big, and you and I have watched this league for a long time, and it's very interesting that this is sort of one of the age-old dilemmas of guys start winning and then want more once they start winning. And
Yeah.
I don't begrudge Jalen for in a lot of ways. He's at prime of his career. He just had this incredible
Yeah.
season. He's probably
The,
looking around saying, "Why am I not considered the best player on the team? Why am I so available?"
yeah. I just don't think his quotes really show that he's like, oh, I need my own team. Like someone saying they had like people are latching on to, oh, I had the best, like my favorite year of my career as like a knock at Jason Tatum is kind of a reach. It's like,
Do you not think
dude,
it's
dude
great?
just had an incredible year taking a team that no one believed in, like 2 through 7 or whatever, on the roster, and just like took them and had this incredible run. So, someone saying that they had a great year, like, dude, you want your players to say they had a good time.
Well,
That's
I wanna get on to the trades that did happen, but I'll end with this. You mentioned who this is a reflection of in a positive and negative way in terms of trust in Tatum, trust in Giannis. What about trust in Hugo Gonzalez and Baylor Shireman? Because there was some real reporting that that's where Brad Stevens in the front office drew the line. And imagine going to Jalen Brown and saying, "Yeah, you were dangled along with 2 first-round picks. Baylor Shireman, absolutely not touchable."
rock solid. Rock
Yeah.
solid. Can't go without him.
Okay, well that's enough Celtics time. I'm sure we'll they'll be eventful during the offseason, it seems like, if nothing else. So why don't you get us started with the trades that did happen?
So we're dancing around the Giannis trade. This is something that people get annoyed. They're like, "Oh, can it happen already?" And I think that's them just being too chronically online. It's like, dude, care about something else. But Giannis, after all the smoke, finally gone. Him and Bobby Portis, and the haul is pretty big in terms of we were kind of talking future and present with players. So future, first round picks in 2026, 31, and 33. Another pick swap in between those years in 2030. And for players, Tyler Hero returns home, the Wisconsin boy. Kalel Ware, who's up and coming. Jaime Jaquez, who is in the sixth man talks. Yakachunas, who's a player that still shows a lot of promise as a second year guy. It's a pretty big haul, and the Heat have been quiet for years. They were one of those guys that we were thinking asleep at the wheel, Pat Riley. They got their guy. This harks back to they got their guys with the decision with LeBron and Bosch. This is the first big splash. I mean, Jimmy Butler as well. Um, what were your first reactions? And let's talk Heat and what they look like with Giannis.
I actually want to sort of defer and let you go first here.
Yeah,
I'm
great.
very curious. So why don't you jump in? What do you think?
So let's start with the Heat. Um, Bam Giannis is your big guys. You're going with the Twin Towers with the 4-5, which right now in the league you really look for like the 2-3, Jalen, Tatum, guys that can really handle the ball and create for others. Bam and Giannis aren't really those guys. They're willing passers, but they're not, they're not hubs like Sabonis or Jokic or anything. So the Heat have had clunky offense before. I think Tyler Hero brought a lot of that offense, and they're gonna really lean on. I think Norm Powell's still there. Um, Davion kind of runs point as just a distributor.
As a real quick point of clarification, Norm Powell is a player option that he's going to decline, so he'll be an unrestricted free agent. So the
Okay.
Heat, depending what Andrew Wiggins does with his contract, they might be able to re-sign him. It's
Yeah.
also there's rumors that Detroit is going to put a big offer in front of Norm Powell. So,
Yeah.
and that's interesting you bring that up because
That's
that's
fair.
something you want to touch on. There is no guarantee that Norman Powell is on that team.
Yeah. And Detroit is one of those other asleep at the wheel teams that needs to do something. So
Mm-hmm.
all they've done thus far is basically trade beef stew for Isaiah Joe.
Mm-hmm.
So basically nothing. So we could see that. It leaves it a little short on shooting. You want to surround Giannis with shooters. Bam, he's developing the 3-pointer, but he's not like, off the ball wizard movement type stuff. I think the offense is going to be a little clunky, but defensively, I mean that is Davion up front, off night, and off nights for other guys that are going against Giannis and Bam. It's just going to be a lot of arms in the center and tough shots. So I think the offense is going to be a little bit of a work in progress over the year, but the defense is going to be pretty stellar. I would like to see them upgrade at the guard spots if possible if they lose Norm because it's going to be pretty thin. So that's where I'm at on the Heat. What do you think about my assessment? High defense, low offense.
I think it's spot on. And where I came out with this trade is I think this is a lose-lose for both teams. I
Sure.
really do. I think Milwaukee held on way too long to Giannis. And while they got a strong return in terms of number of assets, I'm not sure the quality of assets is all that high. And for Miami, you had already mentioned the Carmelo to the Knicks trade in 2010, where when you make so many assets into a single acquisition and then you look to build the team and you're like, well, wait, there's nothing here left to upgrade on. If Powell leaves, they're so close to the aprons, they don't have access to as many of the many exceptions and ways to upgrade the roster. So you're sort of saying it's Bam, it's Giannis, it's Mitchell, it's probably Wiggins, it's Larson, and it's Portis, and it's a bunch of minimum guys. And I'm not sure that team, and I want us to sort of go through the East and say which teams that group is better than. I'm not sure that's a top six team in the conference. And if you're
Oh, it's
Milwaukee,
top six. That's top six with a
so
healthy Giannis.
let's stop right there and let's actually go through it. So I'll tell you teams. The Knicks are that Heat team.
Yep, better.
The Celtics are the Heat.
Celtics.
The Cavs are the Heat.
I would take the Heat.
Interesting. The Pistons are the Heat.
Could go either way.
The Pacers are the Heat.
Yeah, probably Pacers.
The Magic are the Heat.
Given a full Halliburton. No, I'd take the Heat or the Magic.
The Hornets are the Heat.
We'll talk more about the Hornets, but I'd definitely take the Heat now.
Where I think, okay, so you're a little bit higher on them than I am. And I think the defensive floor with Spoelstra gives you a strong argument. I by no means think this is a 39 or 40 win team. I'm just not sure the ceiling is there to where it becomes a 50 to 55 win team.
Yeah.
And if you're giving up draft assets into 2020 or 2033 for an aging player, I think the hope, if you're Pat Riley, is we bring him in. We have a real path where we think we should absolutely be in the conference finals at minimum.
Yeah.
And I personally don't see that for the Bucks, and I want to touch on them
Yeah.
after you.
Maybe not this year though. But the window is not just this year with this trade. I mean, they have years now to cobble and put this together.
Do they? And I mean that sincerely. How many more years do you think Giannis has at an elite level? And to be clear, I'm not saying it's this year and then it's over, but I also am not sure this is 5 more years of prime Giannis.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, people are kind of saying like, "Oh yeah, like 2 years. You want to be serious these next 2 years, and then it's tough."
Let me ask you this, and I know this has made the rounds a little bit, at least in group chat, Simon. And I'm curious, would you consider trading? Do you think Bam and Giannis even make sense together?
I've never really understood Bam's full impact, so no. And I was kind of intimating that with like, yeah, they do this, they can like make this work. They wouldn't be the natural 1-2 I would think of. Yeah, there's no playmaking.
The idea is that Giannis wants to play, and this was an interesting conversation that I had recently. Giannis hasn't played with basically a traditional center since 2018. Like since the Bucks got Brook Lopez, it's always sort of been it was Brook Lopez, and then it was Miles Turner, and then it was Bobby Portis. It makes logical sense. Giannis lives at the rim. You want the big that can threaten the defense out on the perimeter. I mean, sure, Bam is technically a shooting 5, but I don't think that any team is going to go into their scouting report and say, hey, guys, we have to run at Bam like he's a 5 alarm fire if he catches the ball out on the perimeter.
Yeah, totally. His offensive game is always like just when you're totally out, he kind of burns you. But he's had playoff runs
He
where
scores 83 points.
right, but then in playoff runs, he's won some Tobias Harris "Are You Even on the Court" awards. So not the
Where
natural 1-2.
where did you so you heard my sort of phrasing of I think this is a lose lose.
Yeah,
Bucks Heat, who do you think won the trade and sort of used that as a framing device for what you thought of the Bucks return for Giannis after sort of being in
I
this market for so many years?
I think the Bucks won this trade considering where we're at. Sunk cost fallacy. They should have done it a year ago. You could say for more, but given their lack of, it's crazy to talk about Giannis this way, but the Bucks really had a lack of leverage with getting off him. I think they got a lot back from the Heat that they can use for this rebuild. So I would say the Bucks won this trade, but we can't for sure say that until this window, until we see what happens over the next year, 2 years, 3 years with the Heat, if they can really contend or if they have. I mean, I think they have more moves to make because they need to up their guard play. But
Oh, brother, they have a lot of guards. Don't worry. The Ryan Rollins, Kevin Porter Jr., Tyler Hero trio is going to
I
set a
mean the
lot of gems
I
on
mean the
fire.
Heat. I mean the
Oh,
Heat.
the Heat. I'm
Yeah,
curious for the Bucks, if you're the front office or you're a fan, what do you look at and say this is the best asset we got in this trade?
um, I mean, Hero is the best player in it. If you're looking at upside, Khalil Ware has shown stuff. I don't know, man. Yeah, first round picks are good.
Get excited about some Nate Amen tape. You
We
caught
thought
any of that before
we
the
knew
draft?
that this was going to be dark days ahead for the Bucks when this finally happened. So
Yeah. Nothing
I
like going into a rebuild without having your draft picks for the next 4 years.
and dead Dame money, like they're paying the ghost of Dame Lillard 20 million a year too.
Yeah. So that
Really bizarre.
they can
But they
watch
got
Miles.
Miles Turner,
Yeah. All
my my
7 points.
least favorite player of
Yeah.
2026.
All 7 points and 3 rebounds for him.
Yeah, yeah. It's like Roy Hibbert disappeared and he's like in the form of Miles Turner.
Yeah, let me touch on the Heat side a little bit more because I know, or the Buck side a little bit more because I'm a little bit more attuned to the draft.
And then we'll probably
And
never talk about the Bucks for the next like 3 years. So go
I, I
ahead.
will I will say I really liked Braden Berries, and I'm really bummed that he went to this team because I think he's such a high floor winning player and would make sense in a rotation where the team is trying to win and the Bucks, while maybe trying to win because they don't have ownership of their draft picks, will not actually be doing any winning. There's an argument to be made that the Bucks got not only the 3 first-round picks from Giannis, but also the 2 additional with Ware and Yakachonis still on their rookie contracts. To your point, I think they did well. Part of the reason I asked about was there a clear best asset when you trade a top 25 all-time player who
Yeah.
is the best franchise player who had an extended career. Kareem is obviously better than Giannis, but Giannis played for much longer with the Bucks than Kareem did. When you trade a guy of that caliber, you don't really want to go to your fan base and say, "Hey, great news! Our best asset is a one-time All-Star who we're going to trade in 9 months." But I think your argument is where I netted out of if you can't get the one blue chip, at least get a lot of bites at the apple because hey, maybe Hawkes doesn't pan out. Maybe Amen does. Maybe
Yeah.
Yaki doesn't pan out. Maybe Ware does. Maybe one of these draft picks do. So I'm not sure it's a trade that I think was the peak, certainly not, was the peak value for Giannis. But at this stage, it's a trade that I think where you had started it, both teams are just thrilled to be past it, thrilled to go on to the next evolution of their team building. And at
Yeah.
least both now have clear, this is where we're going as a franchise for the next couple of years, which is
Totally.
interesting for the next trade we're going to talk about. because whereas you have the Heat and the Bucks saying one wants to be good, one wants to be bad,
Yeah.
we're going to now talk about the LaMello Ball trade, which I think is very interesting because those are two teams saying we want to be good and taking completely different roadmaps to accomplish that goal.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's get into it. Pretty shocking. I love just shocking. No one hears a thing about it until it happens. Blockbuster star trades. There was no indication that the Hornets wanted out of the LaMello Ball business until they traded him and Josh Green to the Timberwolves for Naz Reid, and then here comes the picks. First rounder in 2033, swaps in 28, 29, and 30, and then a few second rounders. So four first rounders. And then kind of you can tack on to the deal. The Timberwolves re-sign Io DeSumo for 5 years. So they're going with Io as their guard rotation with Anthony Edwards and LaMello Ball. They also got off Julius Randle. So it is like all over the place for the Timberwolves, shuffling things up. I kind of love it. I kind of love it for the Timberwolves. I think this is great for them. I'm kind of head scratching and like wondering what's going on in Charlotte. Um, but I like what the Timberwolves are doing. What was your initial reaction?
I don't want to just be negative the entire pod. I also really did not like this trade for either team.
No?
And if I were to say I like it, I like it less for the Hornets. The LaMelo thing is interesting. I like LaMelo as a player. When the Clippers were rumored to be interested in him at the deadline, the game to me is undeniable. And the translation to winning might be a whole different conversation. And there was a lot of discussion after the trade about how LaMelo has basically never played in an important game, and the ones he has played in, his team has lost pretty soundly. There's also the health element that I don't think can be overstated enough, where this was by far LaMelo's most healthy season in the NBA for, I mean, he was drafted in 2020, so we're entering year 6 or 7 for him. Here's where I net out as it relates to both teams. For the Hornets, I think this was a massive miscalculation about why your team was so good last year. And when we did the under 25 pyramid, and Elliot and I did it together, and we both sang the praise of Jeff Peterson and the Hornets front office and had Con Knipple and Brandon Miller as two of the top 12 prospects under 25. I'm higher on Brandon Miller than I am Con Knipple. I am a Con Knipple skeptic. I am sorry about that. That can be and will be a much more interesting conversation going into next season. I always felt LaMello Ball drove the bus that then Con Knipple and Brandon Miller got to ride shotgun in.
Yeah.
And removing LaMello Ball and putting that pressure on Brandon Miller and Con Knipple is a
And Kobe
massive
White.
bet. Both of them are, and Kobe White, to your point, is a massive bet that those three are capable of picking that up. For the Timberwolves, I think it's a talent play. And the one thing you can't say about the Timberwolves is, man, oh man, they're willing to go down shooting every single time. They did it with
Yeah.
Gobert. Now they did it with LaMelo. So I think both teams, I applaud the boldness while hesitant about the level of investment and sort of the direction each are going. What about you? I mean, you said you loved it for Minnesota. So I actually want to start. What did you think about it with Charlotte, and then bring in the Minnesota idea?
Yeah, so my head scratchingness about the Hornets, I'm kind of with you. Like LaMelo Ball really stirred that drink in a lot of ways. I if you're liking it, you're saying they are not doing what the Bucks did with Giannis. Different caliber player, but the Bucks held on for too long and lowered their value when they knew they had to trade him. Maybe the Hornets are they're selling high at this point on LaMelo. They know that he's not the one that they want to move forward with and pay, so they're getting out of the business selling high on him after this one healthy year. Like we talked about, it's a big bet on some of these other guys. But if you're looking in the big picture of like why are you a GM? Like, what is a success of a team? It's like you get all these picks back that to then draft another guy kind of like LaMello. Like that's kind of what you need is someone
Mhm.
if you want to be a successful team in this league, you need someone a guard who's a playmaker, scorer, and LaMello is like despite some of the bumps and like the goofiness with the personality, like you got to see that through. He's in that best under 25 pyramid. It's tough. I mean, maybe they know that his ankles are not going to hold up, or which is the like Luca thing, which is crazy. Um, I don't know, man. It's a little strange because
And I
they
think it can't. You had mentioned it, and I think it's an important point of clarification. It's not four unprotected first round picks. It's three swaps, and most of these are
right.
swaps of swaps, where the likelihood of them turning into blue chip asset top five picks are so low because you're maybe first, maybe second in line to get the pick. And
Yeah.
the other thing that is super interesting to me about, and you mentioned it when you were talking about the Hornets, is again it go and I don't know, we didn't really discuss Nas Reed being a part of this trade is I think an important element of it. And we
Yeah.
saw it today with the Miles Bridges transaction where they moved Miles Bridges off, got the 2033 first round pick from the Phoenix Suns along with Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal. The Hornets are clearly playing the long game here. And that,
Yeah.
and I think it's such a great point you made about you make the long term bets to actually win the prize. And so when the Hornets traded Terry Rozier and PJ Washington at the trade deadline and sort of tanked and took the step back to get them Brandon Miller, Con Knipple, and LaMello Ball, when you finally have your first good team in about 15 years, I think it takes brass balls from the front office to say, we finally have the fan base excited. We
Yeah.
finally have a direction with a coach and with a top of the roster and a five-man unit that works. You know what? Let's burn the whole thing down and get ready for 2023. And look, if it works
2033.
and they
Yeah.
make the right bets, good on them. But I'm stunned at the cold-hearted nature of LaMelo wants to be here. This is not LA, New
Right.
York, or Miami. This is Charlotte.
Yeah.
And to get rid of him with 3 years on what I don't think is an untradeable contract, man, I'm stunned by it. You mentioned at
Yeah.
the top you love it for Minnesota. So just
You've
let's sort
seen
of geek out. Yeah, go ahead.
you've seen Halliburton burn the Kings on selling high on a guy when he's young and he wants to stay in your small market. Like Halliburton is game 7 of the finals kind of guy and the Kings are completely lost. This move kind of has some parallels there. It's a little scary if you're a Charlotte fan.
What do you, and let's sort of turn it over to the Minnesota side of this now. And we did the same phrasing with Miami, so let's do it again with Minnesota. Is Minnesota now a top four team to you in the West? Do you look at them and say that? Or how about this? Because I think if you're Tim Connolly in that front office, you're not doing this trade to get to the second round to get smoked by 5 games. That just happened to you this past season.
Yeah.
Do you think the Wolves can actually push the top two teams in the West with this general roster construction?
Yeah. No, I do. Um, the other phrasing we went with was, does Giannis and Bam make sense? Let's ask, does Anthony Edwards and LaMello Ball make sense? I think yes. I think it's going to be awesome. It's going to be flashy. Anthony Edwards is a top tier defender, and they have Jaden McDaniels behind them and Rudy Gobert to anchor the whole thing. So defensively, I think we're all good. Even though LaMelo he's still getting better as a defender, but he like isn't one. I think he could probably buy in with this team or stick out like a sore thumb. So I think they make sense on the defensive end of the floor. And then on the offensive end of the floor, if you like threes,
You're
these
gonna love
guys
this.
both
You're gonna love this.
average, bro, they average like 18 to 20 between them a game. It's just going to be raining. And Anthony Edwards likes moving off the ball. They needed someone to take over The corpse of Mike Conley was not cutting it anymore. Io is not a natural one. Anthony Edwards needed someone to take some of the work off him and attention off of him, and he is just going to feel so free floating around to threes, hitting step backs, hitting like off the catch stuff. His footwork is so good at the three now. I think they're going to fit really seamlessly. So I really like what I see out of that roster construction. And then once again, you kick out the stinky bag of trash of Julius Randle, who it was fine, but sticks around a little long and starts to smell, and you need to get rid of it because it's not working. So I like where they're at. I think they can totally compete with San Antonio and OKC. Do you disagree?
I do disagree with that. And I think that's where I texted a couple of my friends that were really big Celtics fans. And I think I may have texted you something along the lines, or a couple of teams that didn't get Giannis. And I said, don't worry about missing out on Giannis because we're only a year away from or a year away from Anthony Edwards. And I do think that is where we're eventually headed with this, where it's really hard, especially in that conference, especially with those teams. This was the last bit of ammunition the Timberwolves had, essentially for the rest of the decade, unless they're trading one of their good players, notably Jaden McDaniels or the eventual Anthony Edwards trade, or repackaging LaMello Ball. But I don't see the LaMello Ball part happening anytime soon. I think the fireworks are going to be a fucking blast to watch. Don't get me wrong. This definitely has vibes of get your popcorn ready. They are going to be all over social media. They're going to be on SportsCenter Top 10 every single night. The lobs, the crossovers. If you're just a fan of cool-looking basketball, you're going to love the Minnesota Timberwolves. And every kid under like 12 years old is about to become a massive Minnesota Timberwolves fan because you put Ant and LaMello on the same team, the highlights are going to be crazy. And I like a lot of the. I actually am a fan of Terrence Shannon Jr. Always have been.
I was gonna say,
I do
yeah,
think that
dog.
Nolan Clark is a good rotation player. This is a massive bet on J.
Yeah,
My only concern is once you get into a series against teams of this caliber, there's a couple of elements of it. One, and I think we're both LaMello Ball optimists and are in general excited about this trade. You mentioned it. I mentioned it. I do want to play devil's advocate that are we sure LaMello Ball could actually play on a winning team? Like, can you envision LaMello Ball going into OKC in game 5 of a Western Conference Finals and playing well enough for them to win that game?
it's the gamble. I think he's got the right stuff, given the right organization around him. I think he's going to snap to Anthony Edwards' lead and that culture there. Um, I don't think I mean, he's shown already this last season he can like tone down the clowning around one-footed three and really lock in. That team was an incredible team for the last half of the NBA regular season with him. So I'm an optimist on it. Yeah, man, it's
It's
well,
gonna be. It's
that's
gonna
cool.
be.
I'm big on it. You're not so much.
I'm not sure. Again, this is I think a problem every single team in the West. And after this, we're going to go a little bit into the draft and evaluate some of the picks and where those teams are. I think it's a totally different conversation if you're a team in the East versus a team in the West. Where if you're the Wizards, you could actually be sitting around your basketball operations offices after the DeBonsa pick and say, are we sure we couldn't actually get out of the play-in next year? And like, are we terrified? We just saw Philly beat Boston in a 2-7. Are we sure maybe we don't want to play the Knicks, but we could scratch and claw and make something interesting. Whereas I think if you're in the West and you're
Yeah.
legitimately trying to get to that last round, hey, if you want to try and build to be a 6 or a 5 seed, but the Timberwolves were already there. This to me is a trade of we do this, and it's only a successful season if we beat one or both of the Goliaths.
Yeah.
And I'm not sure this is a trade where you can look at them and say, we're going to beat them. And it's an interesting bet, I think, and you said it, and I completely agree. It's a hell of a it's a talent play. It really is. And
Yeah.
the ceiling may get them. And I think as any fan of a team, you would rather you see your favorite team. If you're asking a Timberwolves fan and a Hornets fan, you made maybe a more logical transaction. Timberwolves, you got drunk at the bar and decided to just go up there and rip karaoke in front of 200 people. I think that the
It's
Timberwolves fans had more fun at the bar last night than the Hornets fan who went to bed at 9 p.m. because it was a school night.
I don't think it's as crazy as you're painting it for the Timberwolves. I think Julius Randle, they had to get off him. He was a disaster this playoffs. He's been a disaster before in the playoffs. You just fool me once, fool me twice, all that stuff. They had to get off him. And Naz Reid, they never really got the full potential out of him, and I think they were ready to shake that up. The other move, so they got to do something, right? You're going with Anthony Edwards. That's your guy. Are you going to move Rudy Gobert again? His value probably isn't that high. It's probably higher to the Timberwolves than anyone else. So for them to make this splash where I think those two guys make sense, you're saying, "Hey man, Ant, take us to the promised land. This is the time because we're pushing in." So I like it.
Do
I
you
think it's
think?
what they should have done, and
Let me ask you
I like
this:
it.
is this the best? Do you think this will be the best Wolves team of the Ant era? If I could give you sort of three
Oh yeah,
different versions, I could give you
oh
Ant
yeah.
and Cat. I could give you Ant, Randall, DiVincenzo, Alexander Walker, sort of post Cat trade, or I could give you this team. You think this is the best team of the three?
The only one to compare to is the one that beat Jokic in seven,
Mm-hmm.
and I say this team is better than that. Io's a hell of a player. Ant should be better than that Ant. The dude
Mm-hmm.
can threes now. Now has all the ball handling of being the guy, um, but now doesn't have to be the ball handler. I think this is the best Wolves team of the Ant era for sure.
Okay. Well, that'll be a really fun one for us to evaluate.